Okay, good morning, grade nines. Today I'm changing it up and I'll be doing a business lesson and we'll be starting with supply and demand, price theory. But today I'll be focusing on demand. Okay, so when we think about demand, we always think about wants and needs and what consumers crave and what they're able to buy. Okay, and we're going to talk about those factors that affect demand and a graph that will represent demand. So what's important here first is the definition of demand, and it is the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at different price levels. Okay, now let's break this down a little bit. Let's see. It's how much of a product a consumer is able or willing to purchase at different price levels. Okay, what determines what we are able to purchase? Things like our income. Okay, that's a big factor. Weather conditions, etc. So we're going to think about these when we talk about the factors that determine demand. Okay, now we have to think. Let's say someone is selling brownies for Debs and Squires. Okay, one person is selling the brownies for 5 Rand and another person is selling the brownies for 10 Rand. Which one would you automatically want to purchase? You'd want to purchase the brownie that costs 5 Rand because it's cheaper. Okay, so if that person sells their brownies for 5 Rand and gradually starts increasing their price, do you think as many people will want to purchase the product? Probably not. Okay, and why? Because price has a huge effect on the quantity demanded. Okay, so you'll know that as soon as the price of a product increases, are you wanting to buy that product? No. Okay, so we're really going to talk about that in depth. So here we go. The first factor that determines demand is obviously the price of the product. Okay, so for example, we know that if the price is high, people will consume less. Okay, that is just how it works in an economy. If the price of a product is very high, people aren't going to want to purchase it because they can't afford it. Okay, so that's a big thing. Then the next factor is consumer income. Okay, so how much income we have. Okay, we know that if someone has a high income, they can buy more. Okay, and vice versa. Okay, if someone has a low income, then they can buy less. They'll buy much less. Okay, sorry about that. Then, number 3. The next thing that affects demand is advertising. Advertising plays a huge role, especially in your guys' life. You see advertising on Instagram, TikTok, things like that, and it affects how much of a product a consumer will buy. Okay, so if there is really effective advertising and one of your favorite celebrities is advertising a certain brand, obviously you will have an increase in demand for that product. Okay, and you see that with influencers, things like that on Instagram. If you have your favorite influencer and they're advertising for a specific toothpaste company, the demand for that toothpaste is going to increase because of how effective that person is at advertising. Then the next thing that affects demand is the price of other products. That's a big thing. Okay, for example, let's say I'm at the shop and I'm looking at Butro and I'm looking at Flora or margarine. Okay, the price of those products are very different and that will affect the one which I'm going to purchase. Okay, so that is a big thing. Another example, so I'm just going to say here, the price affects the product that is going to be purchased. Also, let's say the price of petrol goes up. We then know that, are people going to go run and purchase cars? No, because then they know that they won't be able to afford purchasing those cars. So the price of other products definitely is going to affect you. Then the fifth thing is weather conditions, okay? Like, for example, bikinis. Right now we're going into winter, okay, or swimming costumes. Right now we're going into winter. Is it necessary, and will people be demanding costumes right now? No, because the weather doesn't allow for us to be wearing swimming costumes, okay? So the demand for swimming costumes will be much less, okay? So this also affects the quantity demanded, like whether it is cold or hot, okay? So that has a big effect. And then the last one is fashion and trends, okay? Trends have a huge effect on what products are demanded. They influence demand because people purchase what is fashionable, okay? Like, I always refer to this, for some reason, 2 years ago, it was the fashion for people to wear fishnet stockings underneath their ripped jeans. Okay, I don't know why that was a fashion trend, but it was. So during that time, what do you think happened to the demand of fishnet stockings? It would have increased. Okay, so you can see how fashion has a huge influence there. Then we talk about the law of demand. Now, I'm going to show you, before we even write down the law of demand, which you must know, okay, I want to first refer you to this demand schedule, okay? Now, demand schedule is a table, as you can see. Here's the table, and it shows the quantity demanded of a product at different prices. So let's look. This demand schedule is for ice creams, okay? And it says, okay, at 5 Rand, 10 ice creams are demanded. Then at 10 Rand, 7 ice creams are demanded. At 15 Rand, 4 ice creams are demanded, and at 20 Rand, only 1 ice cream. So what can we see? The price is increasing, okay, as we look down. And what can we see is happening to the quantity demanded? Well, it is going to decrease, because as price increases, quantity demanded decreases, because people cannot afford to buy an ice cream at 20 Rand. They're not willing to purchase it. They don't want to purchase it. So this is the exact relationship. As price increases, the quantity demanded is going to decrease. Okay, can you see that it is working opposite? Okay, price goes up and the quantity demanded goes down. Okay, now what we call this type of relationship here, this opposite relationship, we call it an inverse relationship. Inverse meaning opposite. And this is the law of demand. It says, as price increases, demand decreases. So we can go to the law of demand here and we can fill in, okay? And we can say, yeah, there is an inverse relationship between what? The price of a product and the quantity demanded. And you can see that there is an opposite relationship. As price increases, the quantity demanded will decrease. So it says here, as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. Okay, and then it says, and vice versa. And for the opposite, so vice versa would obviously be, as price decreases, so when the prices go down, that means the quantity will then increase, okay? Because people like it when the price decreases. They'll buy more, okay? So that is very important, and please, you must know this law of demand really, really well. Okay, so why we get given a demand schedule is because we are then expected to draw a demand graph, okay? And it's important to know what a demand graph looks like. And you're going to see actually how the law of demand is represented on a demand graph. Okay, so here we go. We have a demand curve, rather, or a graph. And it's drawn on a set of axes, which is given there. Okay, and this demand curve, as I've just told you, we draw it from a demand schedule. Okay, and it's going to say it illustrates the law of demand. I'm going to show you how it illustrates the law of demand. So for a demand curve, like any graph, like in maths, we have to have a heading. Okay, so our heading here is going to be a demand curve for chocolate bars. Okay, because that's what our demand schedule was about. So we can just have underline the heading. Then the next step is to label our set of axes. Okay, quantity always goes on the bottom. Okay, and price goes on the y-axis. Perfect. Okay, quantity and price. Then what we need to do is we need to put in our prices and our quantity amounts. So we have to look at our demand schedule and we have to see, okay, price goes 5, 10, 15, 20. I'd say that's pretty even. So we label it 0 there and we can go, okay, 5, 10, 15, 20. And then we can do the quantity, and it's 1, 4, 7, and 10. But we can't obviously label 1, 4, 7, and 10. So let's label it in 2s. Okay, so we can go 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, then our next thing is to plot all of our points. So the first one is 5 Rand and the quantity demanded is 10. So we go look, the price is 5 Rand and the quantity demanded is 10. And we go, make sure it's nice and even, and we just label it with a dot. So we're going to start making a line graph here. Okay, so there's my dot. Then the next one is 10 Rand and 7 demanded. So I go to 10 Rand there and 7, which is between 6 and 8. Okay, so over there. And we label that. The next one is 15 Rand and 4 are demanded. So there's 15, there's 4. Okay, and the next one is 20 Rand and only 1 is demanded. So I come to 20 and in between 0 and 2, I put my dot. Okay, so then what we do next is we go and we connect these dots to draw our line graph. Okay, please do so with a ruler like I'm doing. Okay, and there is our demand curve. Now what we have to do is label it. So because it's a demand curve, we label it D, and it's the first graph that we've drawn, D1, and we also need to label it at the bottom as D1. Okay, so can you see this demand curve is going in the downwards direction? And let's see what that means. What does this represent? Look what's happening. As it's going down, we look, okay, at 20 Rand, only 1 is demanded. Then at 15 Rand, 4 are demanded. At 10 Rand, 7 are demanded. And at 5 Rand, 10 are demanded. So what can we see here? We can see that as the price is decreasing, okay, so as the price decreases, look, 20, 15, 10, what is happening to the quantity demanded? The quantity is increasing. And that perfectly represents our law of demand. Okay, why? Because it says here, and let's show, look how it's going down. So the demand curve always goes down, okay? And it says here, this perfectly illustrates the law of demand as, and we can write it again, as price increases, the quantity demanded decreases, okay? I mean, it increases, apologies for that. No, as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. Sorry, guys, decreases. Okay, and that means thus showing that inverse relationship we were talking about. Okay, so you can see it here. As the price is increasing, 5, 10, 15, 20, look what's happening to the quantity demanded. It is decreasing. Okay, so that is how you would draw a demand curve. Nice and easy. Now, when we talk about demand, we also talk about the fact that there are various changes that happen in demand. Okay, so if we go here to our next page, we talk about changes in demand, and we need to talk about why things change, what causes these various changes in demand. So I say changes according to, and we need to list all of these things. So there wasn't much space now, okay? And we're not going to be talking about the price of the product at all, okay? So that isn't why changes in demand happen. So let's discuss why changes in demand happen, okay? So the first thing, and it's all those factors that we've already spoken about, okay? Like the price of other products, consumer income, fashion, advertising, weather. Okay, these are all going to affect changes in demand. Now, why am I saying that we can't refer to the price of the product? Because we have seen here, we've already established that as price decreases, the quantity demanded decreases. That we can see on the demand curve. Okay, we know that price had this effect, but we need to talk about these other factors that affect demand and cause changes in demand. Okay, so sometimes we can have an increase in demand. So let's think, if there's been an increase in demand, okay, that means that people are obviously going to be wanting to buy more, okay? And if there has been a decrease in demand, that obviously means that people want to buy less. They don't want a product anymore. So for example, that's like what I was saying about the swimming costumes. It's not about price. It's the weather has changed. So if the weather has changed, the demand for swimming costumes are going to decrease. Now, those changes in demand are actually shown in shifts on the demand curve. And I'm going to show that to you now and how it's represented. So what I've done here is I've given you a new demand schedule. Okay, and it's for the same, it's for ice creams. The prices have remained the same. So we can see here, 5 Rand, 10 Rand, 15 Rand, 20 Rand. But look, okay, it's gone to 8 people demanding at 5 Rand. At 10 Rand, only 5 people want. At 15 Rand, only 3 people want. And at 20 Rand, nobody wants ice creams. So if you compare it to the one we did before, okay, the first one was that they wanted 10. Now they only want 8. Then at 10 Rand, people wanted 7, but now they only want 5, okay? You have to think, why? What's the possible reason? Okay, let's talk about the reason why it has decreased. And we can see there's been a decrease in demand because it's gone from 10 to 8, okay? So we can see that there's been a decrease in demand, okay? And why? Possibly, maybe like I've been talking about swimming costumes, maybe the weather's changed. It's coming into winter, so people aren't really keen on buying ice creams. Maybe now, like consumer income, especially during this whole corona thing, lots of people aren't getting an income, so maybe they can't afford to buy luxuries like an ice cream or whatever it might be. So what do is we are going to draw the demand curves and we're going to show how they've changed. So what we're going to do is we have to draw the first one we originally drew, and then we're going to draw this one. Okay, so we need to do another demand curve. So another heading. Okay, demand curve for chocolate bars, and we can put there decrease in demand. Okay, you can immediately see from the two demand schedules that there was a decrease. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to draw our first one again, but first obviously that's our heading, so we need to underline it. Okay, then remember, quantity we always put at the bottom and price on the y-axis. Okay, 0 in the middle, and we go up in 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, and then let's do the same across like we did in the last one. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, so we are going to draw the first demand curve from the original demand schedule. Okay, so I'll put it here for us to see. So it is 5 Rand, 10 demanded. So 5 Rand, 10 are demanded. Okay, so again, I'm drawing that first one. 10 Rand and 7 are demanded. So 10 and 7. Then 15 and 4. And lastly, 20 and 1. Okay, then remember, we need to connect the points using a ruler. And we label it D1 because it's the first one we've drawn. D1, D1. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are then going to draw the new demand schedule. So I'm highlighting it in pink because there's been a change in demand and we're trying to prove that. Okay, so now I'm going to use my pink pen to do it. And we plot the new points. So at 5 Rand, 8 are demanded. So at 5 Rand, 8 are demanded. Okay, then at 10 Rand, 5 are demanded. At 15 Rand, 3 are demanded. And then at 20 Rand, 0 are demanded. So you can plot that on the actual axis. Okay, join the dots again. Okay, this is the second demand curve that we've drawn, so we label it D2, D2. And look, people, what we do is we then take a ruler and we highlight the change. So we've gone from D1 to D2. So how do we represent that? With an arrow to show that there has been a shift. Okay, and look, it is a shift to the left. And why? Because there's been a decrease in demand. So when we look at the quantity demanded, when we move to the left, what happens to the quantity demanded? It has decreased. So what can we see here? Therefore, whenever there is a decrease in demand, there will be a shift to the left. Okay, which then makes sense because they're buying less. Whereas if there was an increase in demand, the demand curve would then shift to the right, because when we're moving right on the demand curve, the quantity demanded is increasing. Look, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It's increasing. And when I go to the left, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, it is decreasing. Okay, so we can see a shift and a decrease in demand here. So if we see, this is what we've already spoken about, that when there is a decrease, there is going to be a shift to the left. Okay, which means the opposite. So when there is an increase, there is going to be a shift to the right. Okay, so that is everything you need to know for demand today. And in the next lesson, I will be discussing supply.